Happy morning, my dear children. Hope you are doing well. In today's class, we are going to recap chapter 1, but there is a little difference. The difference is, with me, there are two guests who will be joining the class to support me to recap the lesson. So children, can you guess who are those two guests? Okay, I will help you. Those two guests are smart, beautiful and energetic children of our school. They are Hannah and Vaishnavi. The first part of the lesson will be explained by Hannah, and it begins from stimuli, and she will wind it with explaining the generation and transmission of impulses. And the second part Vaishnavi will be dealing, and it begins with synapse, and she will wind it by explaining the structure of spinal cord. The third part of the lesson I myself will be taking, and it begins with the reflex action, and I will wind it with the nervous disorder. So this is the process which we are going to do today. So let us switch on to Hannah for the first part.
Hi everyone, I am Hannah. I am here to say the recap for the first lesson of our biology. So the first lesson taught by Priya teacher is sensations and responses. It was a very informative class, and what I understood from this lesson is there are different types of sensations to which we respond. For example, touch, sound, light, smell, etc. And the first thing we learnt is about stimuli. What is stimuli? The sense that evoke responses or the sense that create responses are known as stimuli. There are two types of stimuli, internal stimuli and external stimuli. Hunger and thirst are example for internal stimuli. Then she taught us about receptors. There are some specialized cells in our sense organs and other parts of our body to receive stimuli. These sense organs are known as receptors, and receptors produce or receptors generate impulses. Next we study how responses occur. Responses occur when the impulses generated by the receptors reaches our brain. Then she taught us about neuron. Neuron or nerve cell is the basic structural unit of nervous system. Neuron contains a nucleus, cytoplasm and a cell membrane. And next teacher taught us about the structure of neuron and its different parts. So the parts of the neuron is dendrite, dendron, Schwann cell, axon, axonate and synaptic node. She taught us the peculiarities of each of these parts. First, dendrite. Dendrite is the branch of dendron, and it is the part which receives impulses from the adjacent neuron. And dendrite. It is a short filament from the cell body. It carries impulses from dendrite to the cell body. Then Schwann cell. It encircles the axon. Now axon. Axon is the longest filament from the cell body, and it carries impulses from the cell body to outer. Axonate, branch of axon. It carries impulses to the synaptic node. And synaptic node. This is the tip of the axonate, and it secretes neurotransmitters. And axons of most of the neurons are encircled by a membrane containing lipid. This membrane is known as myelin sheath. and nerves are formed by a group of axons. The myelin sheath in nerves are formed of Schwann cells, and the myelin sheaths in brain and spinal cord are made of specialized cells called oligodendrocytes. And next teacher taught us about white matter and grey matter. First, white matter. The part of the brain and spinal cord where myelinated nerve cells are present in abundance is called white matter. And the part where non-myelinated nerve cells are seen is known as, or is present is known as grey matter. And next is the functions of myelin sheath. First one is it provides nutrient and oxygen to axon. And the second one is it accelerates impulses. And the third one is it covers and protects the axon. And the next topic teacher taught us is the generation and transmission of impulses. The nervous system manages the control and coordination through impulses. And the outer surface of the plasma membrane is positively charged and its inner surface is negatively charged. This is due to the difference in the distribution of various ions. When stimulated, there will be a change in the distribution of ions in particular part. Therefore, the inner surface of the plasma membrane becomes positive and the outer surface of the plasma membrane becomes negative. This momentary charge difference stimulates its adjacent neurons and similar changes occur there too. As this process proceeds, impulses get transmitted into electric charges. And nerve impulses are the messages transmitted through neurons. Thank you.
A snappy day to all my teachers and friends. In the previous classes, we had discussed about the first chapter, sensations and responses. In that, we had studied about synapse. Synapse is a junction between two neurons or a neuron and a muscle cell or a neuron and a glandular cell. Nerve cell, muscle cells and glandular cells are the different types of synapse. When the electric impulses reach the synaptic node, certain chemical substances are secreted from there to the synaptic cleft. These chemical substances are neurotransmitter. And then we have studied about the different types of neuron. The neurons are classified into two based on the direction of impulses. They are sensory neuron which carry impulses to the brain and spinal cord, and motor neuron which carry the impulses from the brain and spinal cord to various parts of the body. Then we had studied about nerve. There are three types of nerve based on their function. They are sensory nerve, motor nerve and mixed nerve. And then we have studied about the nervous system. The nervous system consists of two parts, that is peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. And then we have studied about the brain and the different parts of brain. The brain is the central part of the nervous system. It is protected inside the skull. And a three-layer membrane which covers the brain is meninges. The inner part of the meninges are filled with cerebrospinal fluid. The cerebrospinal fluid is formed from the blood and is reabsorbed into the blood. The main functions of cerebrospinal fluid are to provide nutrients and oxygen to the tissues of the brain, to regulate the pressure in the brain and to protect the brain from injuries. Now the different parts of brain. The largest part of brain is cerebrum. The grey colored outer part of the cerebrum is cortex and the white colored inner part is medulla. The second largest part is cerebellum and the other parts are medulla oblongata, thalamus and hypothalamus. Next is spinal cord. The spinal cord is a continuation of medulla oblongata. The spinal cord is protected inside the vertebral column. The spinal cord is also covered by meninges. The central canal seen in the center of the spinal cord is also filled with cerebrospinal fluid. The grey matter is inside the spinal cord and the white matter is outside. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. A dorsal root and a ventral root join to form a spinal nerve. Sensory impulses reach the spinal cord through dorsal root and the motor impulses go out of the spinal cord through ventral root. Impulses from the body are transmitted to and from the brain through spinal cord.
Thank you, Hannah and Vaishnavi, for giving such a beautiful explanation for the part 1 and part 2. My dear children, now it's your time. Like Hannah and Vaishnavi, among you it can be anyone who has to do the recap for the next class. So, be ready. Now children, as you heard the explanation given by Hannah and Vaishnavi. In the case of the structure of brain, you have to study the parts, and with the parts you have to study the functions also of each part, as the structure of brain and the structure of spinal cord and the structure of neuron, all these are very important, as the question used to come in the question paper. Now we will be switching on to the third part, and that is reflex action. In the reflex action already we have studied that it is the accidental and involuntary responses towards stimuli, and it doesn't happen consciously, isn't it? And what will happen to our body when such reflex actions take place? So we can analyze the illustration in the form of a flow chart. Before that, we can see the figure related to the pathway of impulses in the reflex action. Here you can see the stimulus, and you can see what is happening to the finger. Here, when the finger touches the stimulus in the form of the burning candle, the receptors present in the fingertip, it will be stimulated, and that receptor will be taking the impulses through its various parts to the spinal cord, where the spinal cord will analyze what has happened, and the spinal cord will give response to the motor impulses, and the motor impulses will give the message to the muscles of the hand, and that moment the hand is withdrawn from the stimulus, that is the burning candle. So this is how the pathway of impulse takes place during reflex action. Here you can see the flow chart. Stimulus, and receptor will receive the stimulus in the form of impulses, and the impulses will be received by the sensory neuron, and then to the interneuron. The interneuron will be connecting the sensory neuron to the motor neuron, and from motor neuron the impulses in the form of response reaches the related muscles of the hand, and the hand is withdrawn. The next part we can see the reflex arc. It is a pathway of impulses in the reflex action. We have seen the figure, that is, in the reflex action the impulses are traveling. So that path through which the impulses travel through in the reflex action is known as reflex arc. And we also know that what is reflex? Reflex is involuntary actions, and it may be spinal reflex or cerebral reflex. When it comes to the spinal reflex, we can see that it is under the control of spinal cord, and when it comes with cerebral reflex, we can say as it is under the control of cerebrum. Already we can say we know the examples of cerebral reflex. In the case of cerebral reflex, example is blinking of eyes. In the case of spinal reflex, when we see an accident or when we see a snake, all these are the examples of spinal reflex. So that is about the reflex action as well as reflex arm. Now the next topic is autonomous nervous system, where we came to know that the system is a part of peripheral nervous system and it deals with the unconscious part which is taking place in our body, and you can see here it is responsible for the control of involuntary or visceral bodily functions such as cardiovascular, respiratory, digestive, urinary, reproductive function. All these are the areas where autonomous nervous system functions. And in our life, many instances are taking place through which we can see changes taking place that time. The emergency situations are taking place in our life, isn't it, my dear children? As I told you before, when we see a snake, all of a sudden when a snake comes, what will happen to us? Or all of a sudden when we see an accident, what will happen to us? Isn't it? So surely some changes are taking place in our body. So we can see what it is. Here, heartbeat increases, trachea expands, pupil in the eye dilates, production of saliva decreases. All these are the changes, and more changes are also taking place there. And next is autonomous nervous system are of two types, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic, it works when the emergency situations are taking place. Parasympathetic, it works when the situation is overcome or it has overcome, isn't it? Here you can see the sympathetic and parasympathetic system, how it works in the different part of the body, in different organs, how it is working. We can see here. It begins with the eye and then with the mouth. And in the mouth changes will be taking place, and from there we can see the changes taking place in the chest region where lungs are present there. And there itself we can see heart, again we can see changes taking place in the heart. And then when we are coming to the abdomen region, liver is present there, and then stomach is there, and then urinary bladder as well as kidney is present there. So in these areas we can see the changes taking place during sympathetic system. Already we know that when emergency situation takes place, that time pupil in the eye dilates, expands. Then when we are coming to the mouth region, the saliva production will decreases, and when we are coming to the chest region, in the case of lungs, the respiratory rate increases. In the case of heart, heartbeat rate increases. When we are coming to the abdomen region, in the case of liver, we know that glycogen is stored there. So that glycogen will be converted to glucose for more energy liberation. And then when we are coming to the stomach area, the peristaltic movement which is taking place during the digestive process, it will slow down. And then when we are coming to the next part, that is urinary bladder, it regains its original position so that it can accumulate more urine, isn't it? That is, and next when we are coming to the kidney area, what is happening there? It is producing a hormone called epinephrine and non-epinephrine, which is, that is not in kidney, but kidney is having a cap-like structure, and that cap-like structure is the adrenal gland. And from the adrenal gland, adrenaline, or we can say epinephrine, noradrenaline, or we can say norepinephrine. These are the hormones which will be produced from the adrenal gland. And later on I told you about the parasympathetic system. When the situation overcomes, this system functions. So everything, all the organs which which are there in our body, it will be functioning normally. So this is how sympathetic and parasympathetic system is functioning in our body. Understood, my dear children? Now the next one is the last topic, that is nervous system and its disorder. Already I told you when I was taking this topic, if you are not taking proper food, nutrient will not be absorbed by the body. The maximum amount of nutrient should be there for the proper functioning of the body. Nerves are the, or we can say nerves are also the cell which need nutrients, and if they are not getting proper nutrients, surely that will lead to the disorders or diseases. So such diseases are there which we are familiar, and they are rabies, stroke, sclerosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson and epilepsy. In the case of these diseases, among these diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson and epilepsy, we are going to study in detail. First is Alzheimer's. As already said, cause accumulation of an insoluble protein in the neural tissue of the brain. Number 2, the symptoms are loss of memory, inability to do routine works and to recognize friends and relatives. So this is the cause for Alzheimer's, and this is the symptoms for Alzheimer's. The next one is related to Parkinson. Causes production of dopamine in the brain gets reduced. We know that what is dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. And the symptom, loss of body balance, irregular movement of muscles, shivering of body, profuse salivation. These are the symptoms of Parkinson. And the third one is epilepsy. Causes continuous and irregular flow of electric charges in the brain. Symptoms, continuous muscular contraction, forte discharge from the mouth, clenching of the teeth, following which the patient falls unconscious. So my dear children, these are some of the nervous disorders which are taking place in the body when we are not with our proper food. So with this, we three together, Anna, Vaishnavi and I myself, wind up this chapter, and already I have given you the question of this chapter, and you have to jot down the answer. If you are having any doubt related to this chapter, you can call me and you can clarify it. Thank you. Have a great day.